This is case number 21 CF 1848, State of Wisconsin versus Darrell Brooks.
It's also currently pending in Milwaukee County case number 21 CF 4596. That has a date of offense of November 2, 2021. The allegations in that case, Your Honor, are that he struck the mother of his child in the face with a closed fist. Then as she was walking away from him, he intentionally ran her over with his vehicle. The vehicle in that matter described as what's believed to be the same maroon 2010 Ford Escape used in the allegations in this case. I wish to notify the court, sadly, that today we learned of another death of a child related to this case. We do expect a 6th count for first-degree intentional homicide to be issued or added, to this case. I can advise the court that I am aware, I've been made aware through investigators that there are other individuals in critical condition. I think we remarked on the number of actual injured parties in our complaint. It exceeds 60 people. There's a number of other charges that we are reviewing and considering, but certainly at the very least we do intend to file a 6th count of intentional homicide.
The nature of this offense is shocking. Actually, the detail I was not expecting here today, that two detectives, not lay people, detectives, not only tried to stop this, but rendered an opinion that this was an intentional act. You're presumed innocent, sir, but that's what the allegations are. And I've not seen anything like this in my very long career. So I have no problem. I just, with that bail, it's extraordinarily high, but it's an extraordinarily big case. It's an extraordinarily serious case with an extraordinary history of this gentleman, of fleeing, of hurting people, of not following court orders, not following criminal laws, not following just your societal norms. So I know that that's extraordinarily high bail. It's warranted here, and I am setting cash bail in the amount of $5 million. And with that, we're going to select a preliminary.
The fact is, we always get through those spikes, but we're going to get through this one as well, and hopefully faster. But it doesn't mean we should just stand by idly and wait for prices to drop on their own. Instead, we're taking action. The big part of the reason Americans are facing high gas prices is because oil-producing countries and large companies have not ramped up the supply of oil quickly enough to meet the demand. So today, I'm announcing that the largest ever release from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help provide the supply we need as we recover from this pandemic. In addition, I brought together other nations to contribute to the solution. India, Japan, the Republic of Korea, and the United Kingdom have agreed to release additional oil from their reserves, and China may do more as well. If the gap between wholesale and retail gas prices was in line with past averages, Americans would be paying at least 25 cents less per gallon right now, as I speak. Instead, companies are pocketing the difference as profit. That's unacceptable. And that's why I've asked the Federal Trade Commission to consider whether potentially illegal and anti-competitive behavior in the oil and gas industry is causing higher prices for consumers, so we can assure the American people are paying a fair price for their gasoline. I also want to briefly address one myth about inflated gas prices. They're not due to environmental measures. My effort to combat climate change is not raising the price of gas or increasing its availability. What it's doing, it's increasing the availability of jobs.
So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you retire to the jury room.
A Georgia jury began deliberating Tuesday on whether 3 white men are guilty of murder for chasing and shooting a black man named Ahmaud Arbery, who ran through their mostly white neighborhood last year. Superior Court Judge Timothy Walmsley instructed the jury of 11 white men and women and 1 black man in the law governing the case after lead prosecutor Linda Dunikoski made a final pitch for conviction.
He was trying to get away from these strangers who are yelling at him, threatening to kill him. And then they killed him.
Dunikoski said the men, Gregory McMichael, his son Travis McMichael, and their neighbor William Roddy Bryan, did not have the reasonable suspicion of a crime necessary to detain Arbery, and that Arbery had a constitutional right to not answer any of the questions the men shouted from their trucks. Dunikoski read from Gregory McMichael's interviews with police, in which he said he had no idea what Arbery had been doing before running past the McMichaels' driveway.
You can't make a citizen's arrest because someone's running down the street and you have no idea what crime they have committed that day. You can't hold somebody so the police can show up to go, well, he must have done something. Why don't you police officers go figure out what it was that he went and did today?
The 3 men have pleaded not guilty to charges including murder, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment for the February 2020 killing.
He was a recurring nighttime intruder.
In closing arguments, Laura Hogue, the elder McMichael's lawyer, sought to paint Arbery as a frightening criminal.
With no socks to cover his long, dirty toenails.
The comments upset Arbery's parents and angered scores of Arbery's supporters who have rallied beneath the grand oak trees outside the courthouse. No evidence has emerged that Arbery stole anything on his frequent runs through Satilla Shores. He was killed with nothing on him besides his jogging clothes and sneakers. The prosecution argued the defense was seeking to blame the 25-year-old Arbery for his own death.
Criminal Defense 101, Step 3. It's the victim's fault.
Travis McMichael testified last week that Arbery tried to fight him by grabbing his pump-action shotgun and said he feared for his life. Prosecutors noted that he told the police on the afternoon of the shooting he could not say for sure whether Arbery actually grabbed his gun. Dunikoski said McMichael's pointing a shotgun at Arbery in the first place amounted to aggravated assault, and someone cannot claim self-defense if they are committing a felony.
Tech stocks were hit for a second straight session on Tuesday as a spike in interest rates made that sector less attractive. The Dow jumped 194 points due to the strength of banks and energy stocks. The S&P 500 crept 7 points higher. The tech-dominated Nasdaq fell 79 points. Max Wolf, CEO of Systematic Ventures, believes stock investors are starting to take their cue from the bond market.
So if on the net, there's a little bit less buying because you have a slightly less dovish Fed chief. If on the net, you have slightly higher persistent inflation because you're not going to solve energy issues in the short term. And if on the net, the government's going to need to be in the market borrowing more, then you have all major net structural influences pushing to a slight increase in the yields.
With an eye on inflation, President Biden coordinated a release of strategic oil reserves in the U.S. and other countries in hopes of easing pain at the pump. But the move, which was widely telegraphed, only temporarily pushed oil prices lower. Crude oil ended the day up by more than 2% to $78.50 a barrel. There were some high-profile misses on the earnings front. Best Buy warned that sales during the crucial holiday shopping quarter will likely be hurt by supply shortages for electronics and other big-ticket items. Shares of the electronics chain tumbled 12%. Zoom had a rough day as investors frowned upon the video conference company's weakest-ever quarterly sales growth. The stock, a darling during the health crisis, touched a 17-month low.
It has been 100 days since the Taliban toppled Afghanistan's Western-backed government and swept to power. And since then, Taliban officials have sought to publicly assure women and the international community that women's rights will be protected, despite widespread skepticism. But on Tuesday, November 23rd, the administration released a set of restrictions on Afghan media, with some edicts targeted specifically at women. the Ministry of Vice and Virtue announced 9 rules. Rules largely centred on banning any media that contravenes Islamic or Afghan values, including banning television dramas that included female actors, and ordering women news presenters to wear Islamic hijab, a term women's rights activists say is vague and could be interpreted conservatively. The rules drew criticism from international rights watchdog Human Rights Watch, which said media freedom was deteriorating in the country. Associate Asia Director Patricia Gossman said the disappearance of any space for dissent and worsening restrictions for women in the media and arts is devastating. During the Taliban's previous rule, strict curbs were placed on women's ability to leave the house, unless accompanied by a male relative or to receive education.